everybody! Today we are doing, I guess it's like a speed draw, but it's also a Vintagify video, because even though my other Vintagify videos I did turning cartoons into vintage cartoons, this one I'm turning a real person into a vintage cartoon. And that person is Sabrina Carpenter. If you don't know who she is an, I don't know, do I say up and coming pop star? I love her. I really like her music, but also I love how she kind of leans into this vintage-esque vibe. A lot of her stuff is vintage inspired. And you know your girl's interest is immediately piqued when somebody is constantly referencing vintage stuff. And I don't really pay attention to like the Grammys or anything like that, but I did see her dress, and the minute I saw her dress, I freaked out because I was like, I know exactly what you're referencing, girly. And I'm here for it, and I'm obsessed because she is referencing this iconic dress from the 1964 movie What a Way to Go. The minute I saw it, I was like that meme where he's pointing. I was like, I know what you're referencing. I also love all of her little color coordinated, sparkly outfits that she wears in her short and sweet tour. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with Tex Avery and the Red Hot Riding Hood character. Red was like a showgirl pinup character from a bunch of Tex Avery's cartoons. She ended up being reoccurring, and she was just kind of like super sassy. And the wolf would always end up losing his mind over her every time. Anyway, every time she does this reveal, I always think of Red, and like, it's the same energy, am I right? It just felt so appropriate to draw her. So anyway, let me explain kind of my process. This is kind of what like my setup looked like as I was working, because I do almost all of my work now on the tablet on my iPad, but I had her references plus Red, and then I was sketching it out. Now the thing about Red in Tex Avery's cartoons is that depending on the episode, the proportions of Red changed. So I think her first introduction, she was definitely more cartoony, almost chibi, but not, kind of like in a middle ground. And then some later ones, she was a little more, she had a little bit closer to human proportions, if that makes sense. Like a little bit closer. And so I kept kind of cycling back between both poses because I liked both. One was a little more small, and then the other one was a little more like, I don't know how else to explain it. It's just like slightly more proportioned. In the end, I ended up going with a slightly more proportioned one. I also dropped the reference behind my sketch and compared the proportions as well and made any adjustments that I felt were needed. Her legs are shorter. I made her legs a little long, so I ended up fixing them. But after that, I jumped right into coloring. I was referencing this vintage poster for Red Hot Riding Hood, but obviously they had a different artist who was not as talented do the illustration. I didn't like how it was rendered specifically, but I did kind of like the vintage layout. So I took heavy inspiration from that poster, but then also I took the actual design of Sabrina from the actual Red cartoon. I literally traced the word cartoon and copied exactly how they did it on the poster because I really liked it, and I gave that perfect vintage vibe. So I copied that piece by piece essentially, but then the rest of it I modified with various type and edits to the type to make it work. I don't know really how else to explain it besides I just did what I felt like my gut told me to do. It's like the most vague thing to say. Like, how did you do this? I don't know. I did it based off of what my heart said. I think it just comes from an innate understanding of a vintage vibe and maybe fixing type to make it look like it fits a little better. I don't know. I'm also not a graphic designer, so I'm sure I'm committing grave graphic design sins in this poster. Listen, it is what it is. Now it was time for the line art. This was a very simple process because of the reference and because red was made in the 1950s, I think it was. The design has been simple and easy to animate, so therefore there are not a lot of lines, not a lot of details, big swaths of color, things that are easy to draw over and over again. So that means that for this character design, we are doing the same thing, keeping things very easy. Line art is light, shapes are simple, there's no shading. So literally it's just doing the line art, dropping in the color, and then essentially we're done, minus like coloring the line art and then maybe adding some blush. It's just very, very simple. Once I colored her in and then colored all of the lines and everything, I looked at it and was like, technically I'm done, but it just felt too simple for me. And I know they wouldn't have done this for animating, but I was thinking that maybe they would have done this on a poster, right? Like to advertise this cartoon. So there would be a little more embellishments than what normally would be there in an animation. So I decided I would add a bunch of glitter all over her and all over her little towel thing, because her outfit is glittery and I needed to represent it, but I was trying to think like how would they have represented it by keeping it simple. And so my thought process was just doing dots and just kind of keeping them in specific areas and sprinkling them around. I don't know if it works, but I think it kind of works. And then lastly, I did notice that in some of the animation, she did have a very light blush. So I was like, perfect, I'll add a very light blush. In regards to the short and sweet tour text, I ended up hating it. And I just felt like it wasn't giving that vintage vibe enough. So I ended up downloading a different text and went in and modified it, added the white border around everything and some drop shadow. And I felt like this type looked way better. And I was kind of treating it like Short and Sweet is the name of the cartoon episode. And then I obviously added produced by Savannah Alexandra because I didn't produce it, but like, you know, I'm the artist, so of course I'm gonna put my name in there. And then came the final touch, which is adding all of the Vintagify effects, which is a ton of filters. I was playing around with a bunch of different paper textures, adding some extra distressing, and then also going through my layers and multiplying them for certain layers and not multiplying them for others because the multiply sometimes picks up the texture better. And I basically just went in and did all of that. And if you want to know more in depth how I do it, I have a whole video on it that I will put as a little card up in the corner. But that's about it, so let's go see the final reveal. video. I actually really like how this turned out. I don't really have any sort of like qualms or issues. I think it turned out really cute, and I would die if Sabrina Carpenter ever saw this because I would be so excited. Sabrina, let me design cute vintage illustrations for you. But yeah, I think this turned out so cute. I think she works as like red or in that like Tex Avery style so well. And I don't know. I felt like it was the perfect combo. What do you guys think? Let me know what you think down below. If you really liked this little Vintagify speed draw thing that I did. And tell me which Sabrina Carpenter outfit is your favorite if you have one. But that's about it. It's kind of like a short and quick and easy video today, but I hope you like it anyway. Take care of yourself. I know that this past January has been wild and crazy, and also February is still wild and crazy. So make sure you take time to decompress and spend some time offline and in the world and hanging out with friends and stuff. All right, that's about it. Have a good rest of your evening. Bye-bye.